And good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the very first episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. And I'm your host, Tony Defeo. You may have seen me on my old show, Steelers Brunch with Tony, every Saturday afternoon at noon. But because of my new job, which will take me, I'll be working every Saturday now, so I had to move my show, and now we've created a new night and a new name, but it's the same old me. I'll be talking all things Steelers and same kind of format essentially. Friday night six pack. It's just a play on words. It used to be the brunch Saturday afternoon, although some people said it was lunch at noon, but brunch just sounded more sophisticated. And Friday night six pack, it just sounds, it's just an easy listening show, easy interacting between you and me. Sit back, have a virtual six pack of whatever, and talk some Steelers. So, welcome to the live chat to Craig Lawson, Natasha Negum, Chloe O'Neill. Welcome. I hope to see more of you before the show is out. Lumberzack, my man Lumberzack, Franco DeMarco. So welcome to this first episode, and I usually have a few topics I like to discuss, and I'll do that in the future, but I promised you a Steelers Q&A. I always feel like I shortchange you guys with my by answering your questions at the end of episodes and reading your comments and things of that nature as I'm rambling on with all my topics I'd like to get through. So this week I just decided mostly to do Q&A and answer comments and highlight questions and all those things that I don't feel like I get to concentrate on nearly as much. But I do want to add some texture to tonight's show. And the big news to happen since the last time I spoke to you solo was the Steelers ended their 3-game losing streak last Sunday with a come from behind 28-24 victory over the Colts at Heinz Field. They won their first division title in 3 years, the first AFC North crown. They answered a lot of questions as far as their offense is concerned, meaning the passing game, the struggles of Ben in that offense for many weeks. They failed to score 20 points 3 or 4 weeks in a row there, and last week, at least in the second half, the fourth quarter, they exploded for 3 of their 4 touchdowns. So that was nice to see. And I think we all feel a lot better after last Friday's game or last Saturday or Sunday's game. So that was the big news. And I think it was important that they came from behind and won that game. And yes, they were already in the playoffs. We knew that, but to go in the playoffs on a 4 or a 5-game losing streak, I think that would have been a huge mountain to climb once the postseason began. So that was great to see. And another thing to come after Sunday's game was the news that Mike Tomlin would be resting some of his starters, including Ben Roethlisberger, T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, who else? Marquise Pouncey, a few others. And I'm sure a lot of players will get a small sample size this Sunday against the Browns, and then they'll be taken out. So to me, that's the right move is to sit these guys. I know a lot of fans are worried about rust, but if rust was really a factor, why is the bye so coveted every year going into the playoffs, and why has it been so effective over the years? If you look at the first 54 Super Bowls, with the exception of that stretch from the 2003 through 2012, with the exception of that little decade stretch, the teams that go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl almost always have done so with a week's rest. They get that bye. They only have to play 2 games to get to the playoffs instead of 3. So if rest was really an issue, then I think that would have been borne out much more than or I'm sure long before that stretch there in the 2000s where teams like the Steelers and the Packers, the Giants, the Colts, all those teams won their Super Bowls after starting in the wild card round. They weren't all wild card teams, but some of them were division winners that started in the wild card round. So I think I don't think the rust is as big a factor as people like to think it is. I think it's more about I think the more important thing is rest and of course avoiding injury. And they've certainly had some key injuries on the eve of the playoffs over the past 12, 13 years. If you go back to Mike Tomlin's first year in 2007, I mean, they had a rash of injuries that year. Willie Parker was hurt in the next to last regular season game. He was their bread and butter on offense that year. Really, he was leading the league in rushing, and he broke his leg against the Rams. 2011, they had a bunch of injuries heading into the playoffs, and they were never really. They were basically a show of their former self, of their true selves going into that Denver game. And yes, the Broncos were certainly beatable, and they were 8-8, and they were mediocre, and they had Tim Tebow as a quarterback. But the Steelers were pretty compromised going into that game. And fast forward to 2014 with Le'Veon Bell. 2015 they had a rash of injuries. 2017 Ryan Shazier. In December they lost him with that unfortunate spinal injury. And even this year, earlier in the year, Devin Bush, and then Bud Dupree, and they've had some issues on the offensive line with guys getting hurt. Matt Filer, David DeCastro, in my opinion, hasn't been, in a lot of people's opinions, hasn't been right all year. Obviously, they lost Zach Banner early on, and I can go on and on with the injury issue. So I think it was the right move, and like a lot of people out there, I would love nothing more than to see Mason Rudolph ruin the Browns' playoff chances. Could you imagine? Talk about poetic justice, right? After everything that happened last year at First Energy Stadium, the last time these two teams met last November of 2019. I guess it's 2 Novembers ago now. It's a new year. It's 2021, but the 2019 season, everything that happened with the helmet and all the accusations that Myles Garrett leveled on Mason Rudolph after that, it continues to this day. I think it would be poetic justice if they somehow managed to knock the Browns out of the playoffs. So that's a brief review of last week and what's going on in Steeler land right now. And now I will look for some pretty awesome questions and comments from you guys. Let's see what we have. I'll go all the way back to the beginning. There's Craig Lawson who says Happy New Year. That's really Dave Titterback, Happy New Year. Ezra's here. Raul Medina's here. Gary Collins, Brad Jewett, Black and Gold. Felicia Ballard. Rich. Ryan O'Toole. This I have to highlight this right here. And it says, "Hey Tony, I paused Cobra Kai to catch your show. I watched that all day. I thought it was fantastic. Season 3. I don't know if any of you out there, if you don't know what we're talking about, Cobra Kai is sort of a spinoff of the Karate Kid movie franchise, the movie canon. That those shows those movies that were released in the 80s, they weren't all critically acclaimed, but some of them, a couple of them were pretty good. At least the first 2 were really good. So Cobra Kai, I think, is even better than any of those movies. It's just an extraordinary show. So check that out on Netflix if I may plug that on this episode. Snowman's here. Just Me, Steelers Pittsburgh. Here's one from Lee Victorian. Why can't the offense be more creative? Put 2 halves together with some scoring. I don't know. It's a good question. There's been a number of theories thrown out there. Obviously, a lot of people were against Randy Fichtner, the offensive coordinator. A lot of people were, at least up until this past Sunday, a lot of people were of the opinion that Ben Roethlisberger's arm just wasn't up to snuff anymore. He didn't have it in him to take it downfield, at least on a regular basis, and at least with much effectiveness. But I think he proved a lot of people wrong in that regard this past Sunday when they opened things up in the second half. And he started hitting a long ball. He Deontay Johnson with that 39-yard touchdown late in the third quarter to draw Pittsburgh within 10. They were down 24-7. They just had a very depressing, deflating, or the Colts. They had a depressing series of plays at the goal line when they had a 1st and goal at the 1, and the Colts stuffed them there, like a lot of teams have been doing to them lately, or had been doing to them. So that was an important touchdown, maybe the most important touchdown of the year, that 39-yarder to Johnson, and they just took off from there. They scored again early in the fourth quarter with the 5-yard strike to Eric Ebron, and then later, who was that pass to Juju, the 25-yarder, midway through the fourth quarter to get Pittsburgh their first lead of the game. That was a strike. That was, I mean, if you had any doubts about Ben's arm, he threaded the needle there. He completed that pass between, I think, 2 or 3 defenders. It was a really beautiful pass. So I don't know why they can't put two halves together, but up until their offensive slump, they were averaging 27, 28 points a game. I think at one point they were averaging 30 points a game. And, we were talking as if the offense was unstoppable. I mean, it didn't seem explosive, but it was, they had so many weapons in that short passing game, which is so effective that it seemed like it would be impossible to stop them from scoring 24, 25 points a game on a bad day. But as we found out in that month leading up to the Colts game, every team, when you think it's invincible, it eventually life comes back to bite them, and life comes at you fast in the NFL. And they had a slump, and maybe that's just what it was. Teams figured them out, and we were talking about how it was up to the Steelers to respond to that, to adjust to the adjustments that the opposing defensive coordinators had made with taking away that short passing game. And maybe this past Sunday, the Steelers finally decided to take the whatever handcuffs they had on Ben or on that offense, or whatever fear they had about his arm or the offensive line. And they finally decided, look, we can't sit back and be passive anymore with the short passing game. We have to attack these defenses. We have to adjust to what they're doing. So maybe that's what we saw last Sunday, and that's what you're going to see moving forward in the playoffs. There's my good friend T Money Terry. He says Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year to you too, Terry. Let's move on down here. Black and Gold says, love the momentum we just gained. So huge. I totally agree. And I think I think to go into the playoffs, and again, to repeat myself, on a 5-game losing streak, I think they would have been like, what's the term in prison? Dead man walking. That's what they would have been going into the playoffs on a 5-game losing streak. I don't see how you recover from that. I mean, what kind of confidence would they have had going into the postseason without a win since what? Late November, early December. I mean, forget about it. You're just not going to recover from that, So yeah, it was huge. And all it took was a 20-minute spurt, really, by the offense, and the defense responded. You saw how the defense responded to the offense in the second. Once the offense got rolling, it seemed like it helped the defense gain momentum. The defense looked gassed. They looked tired. They looked like they were looking for a soft place to land. I mean, they just, when you expose the defense, the way Pittsburgh's offense had been exposing the Steelers defense for the past month. I mean, how many 3-and-outs did they have against Cincinnati? And how many 3-and-outs did they have last week? How many 3-and-outs did they have against the Bills? It was just Troy Polamalu. I've said this before. Troy Polamalu said years ago, when he was playing on some legendary defenses with Dick LeBeau as the coordinator, he said back then, look, you can't have a defense can't be on the field for a prolonged period of time, or eventually it gets exposed. Even a great defense like the one they had back then, and they were finishing number one year after year after year, in the late 00s and into the early 2010s, that heyday. So I think the offense's resurgence helped the defense too. The defense, I think, was reeling a little bit from injuries and, again, from being gassed. And I have a $5 super chat that I missed earlier when I was rambling. And that's from Mark Pace, and it's just a $5 donation. Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you for that. That's That's awesome. Happy New Year, man. Let's scroll on down to the bottom of the live chat and see what else we have here. Here's one from Tony. Let's see if I can pronounce that last name. Pristash. It was mentioned on Good Morning Football. I only have basic cable, so I think that's what that acronym stands for. On Thursday morning, that only one quarterback that rested before the playoffs ever made it to the Super Bowl. Drew Brees is the one and only. Well, I guess it all depends on what they had. No, see, that doesn't make any sense. That's not the same thing. See, I had to process that in my brain. You're talking about a quarterback maybe that rested over the last 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season, maybe the last a couple weeks, and then they had a bye in the playoffs before the divisional round, and they were, they had like basically 3 or 4 weeks off. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what would essentially be a regular old bye for Ben Roethlisberger. Say the Steelers finished with the number 1 seed, and they had a week off before the divisional round. That's basically what Mike Tomlin is giving Ben and T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward and some other guys. That's what he's doing. That's not the same thing. That is totally not the same thing. Because if that were the case, and all these number 1 and number 2 seeds over the years would not have made it 2 and 1 the Super Bowl. So it's totally, and we're talking apples and oranges. But thank you for that comment. And here's another $5 super chat from Snowman. Sorry, I missed this, but I'll read it to you. Are the Steelers getting any injured players back, like Spillane? Not that I heard of. I haven't heard anything about Spillane. As far as injured players, I haven't heard anything about Filer. I mean, forgive me if there's been news on anybody, but nobody that I know. I know James Conner's been banged up here and there, but he played last week, so I don't think so. I don't think there's been any major news. And again, if there has been, if I missed it, please check out Behind the Steel Curtain. I'm sure it's on there somewhere. We cover everything. So, but as far as major a player like Spillane, I haven't heard anything about Spillane. But he would be a vital member to get back before the playoffs. Hopefully, I don't know if I think they would have to activate him before the playoffs for him to be eligible. So if they don't activate him after week 17, then he's probably not going to play in the playoffs. That's my understanding. I could be wrong on that one, but as far as his availability, I haven't heard anything. All right, what do you have here? And this is referring to the Browns and possibly feeling the pressure this Sunday against a skeleton Steelers team, so to speak. They need to win. If they win, they're in. So it would be funny if how Browns would that be? How Cleveland Browns would that be? You talk about something that would be hard for them to recover from if they lose to Pittsburgh and then get knocked out of the playoffs. Because if they lose and the Colts win and they're playing the Jaguars, then unless the Ravens or the Colts or not the Colts, but the Ravens or Dolphins or Titans or somebody else loses, then the Browns are done. And I wouldn't count on any of those other teams really losing. The Ravens are playing the Bengals. The Dolphins are playing a Bills team that I'm guessing will be resting some starters in their own right, because basically when it comes to the Bills and the Steelers, it's about they're fighting over the 2 and the 3 seed. And it really doesn't matter, in my opinion, that much this year if you're a 2 or a 3. As long as you stay in that little bracket and you can avoid the Chiefs for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, I don't think it matters. Because if you're the Steelers and you're the 3rd seed and you have to travel in week 2, that could the only place you'd have to travel to. I'm not week 2, but the divisional round. The only team you would have to travel to would be the Bills, and that's not a very far trip. And as I've said before, it's essentially the same kind of weather. And there aren't going to be fans in the stands, or if there are fans, it's going to be limited capacity. So, and the same thing if the Bills come here, it's the same thing for them. It wouldn't be a long trip or the same weather, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think it matters. And if, you never know with like, for example, if the Bills are the 2nd seed. They are the Bills. They have had a tortured history since the 90s, really. I mean, I could see them losing to a 7th seed, which could be the Browns or the Ravens or the Dolphins or you name it, right? So Pittsburgh could host a divisional round after all as the number 3 seed. So, I think 2 and 3, you're okay if you're in that bracket. So, and the Browns, on the other hand, they are going to have a hard time living that down if they don't win this Sunday. What else we have here? Steelers Freak says avoid the Chiefs. Says a lot. Well, I think 13 the 13 teams that make the playoffs besides the Chiefs are going to be trying to avoid them. They're a juggernaut. It doesn't mean they can't be beat, but I think if you can avoid them until the AFC Championship game, then first of all, there's a better chance that the Chiefs get knocked off that in that regard, and second of all, maybe you build up a bit more momentum, winning a couple of postseason games before you get to the AFC Championship game. You build some confidence in yourself. Maybe you find out some more things about yourself on offense, right? You establish maybe a running game. Who knows? The defense gets its dominant confidence back. I know it's going to be harder for the defense to be as good as it can be without Dupree and Devin Bush, but you get on a roll over a few weeks. You get some maybe some players that are next in line. You get them playing better. Maybe they gain some confidence and they're running on adrenaline. They might not be as talented as the people they're replacing, but maybe they gain some confidence going over the first couple of games in the playoffs. And then who knows once you face the KC and at Arrowhead, and that's another stadium that's not going to be filled to capacity. So, I just think it's important to avoid the Chiefs for as long as possible. Here's a comment from Haas Jaffer. I'm not worried about Kansas City. I'd like to avoid the Ratbirds, the Ravens. Well, that seems to be a popular sentiment among a lot of Steeler fans, including me. I mean, I realize they beat them twice this year, and I'm confident they can beat them again. My only thing, and I mentioned this on The Hangover on, was it Monday? Yeah, last Monday. It would just be a tough pill to swallow to have your season ended by the Ravens. There are a lot of people out there that think the Ravens have a better organization than the Steelers now, and they think John Harbaugh, including a lot of Steeler fans, they think John Harbaugh is a better coach than Mike Tomlin, and they're envious of that team, even though they've struggled mightily in the playoffs since they won their last Super Bowl, excuse me, in 2012. So for that reason alone, I would like to see them avoid the Ravens, but not because I think they can't beat them. It's just because I don't, they would have the bragging rights, and I don't care how many regular season games you win. It's the postseason, like Frank O'Hara said, it's the postseason that counts. So on that note, I would bid you adieu for the first half of the first episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack, and I will encourage you, if you're listening on our audio platform, to download part 2. And if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, I always forget about the Facebook part now. We're on Facebook Live. Don't go anywhere because I'm not going anywhere. So please download part 2 of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. And we're back. And I think I screwed that up a little bit, but that's okay. It's my first Friday night show, so I got to get my sea legs. Here's a question from Donald Nolan. Better Super Bowl win, Steelers over Rodgers, Green Bay, or Steelers over Brady, Tampa Bay? I mean, why choose? Actually, obviously, it would be better over Brady. Aaron Rodgers, he beat them in Super Bowl 45 a decade ago, but I mean the Patriots and Tom Brady tortured the Steelers for so many years. I mean, the Buccaneers, people have been waiting for them to, hoping and praying for them to be legit all year, sort of like a super team with Brady going to Tampa and Antonio Brown, Gronk, and they already had some nice receivers there and pretty good defense. So, I I would say Brady. I mean, I think they would exercise some demons a little bit. It's not quite the same as beating Brady in his prime with the Patriots and Bill Belichick as the coach, but still, it would be pretty good. Plus, you would be playing them in Tampa Bay, and I think it would be pretty fitting to possibly end Brady's career with a Super Bowl victory over him and the Buccaneers super team. And of course, again, to repeat AB, I mean, that would be pretty sweet too. And here's a comment from Thanks Mean Joe, and another great point. A Super Bowl win is a Super Bowl win. We don't care who the victim is. And at the end of the day, that's true. I mean, I honestly wouldn't care. But as far as like what would make a better story 5-10 years down the road, obviously beating Brady would be a huge story. And here's a comment from Ryan O'Toole. If our offense is rocking, the team can beat anyone. Yeah, well, I mean, you can say that about a lot of teams. You know, if they're hitting on a lot of good teams, I should say. If they're hitting on all cylinders, then they're pretty tough to beat. Here's one from Black and Gold. Just win that first playoff game, and I feel like we will be rolling. Yeah, well, that's what I mentioned in the first half of the show with the reason why you want to avoid the Chiefs. First of all, because to me, it's the path of least resistance. You know, I don't care. You know, even though I just answered a question about who would be a better story in the Super Bowl to get a victory over the Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. At the end of the day, you know, nobody really, you know, cares. They just know that you won the Super Bowl and they're appreciative of that. Like the Steelers avoided the Patriots the 3 times they went to the Super Bowl in the Ben Roethlisberger era, and nobody really mentions that. Nobody ever says, "Oh, yeah, they won those Super Bowls, but they avoided the Patriots." Nobody cares. So here's another comment from Felicia Ballard. Oh my God, to be in the Super Bowl, win or lose, all the sports analysts would die to have to say we made it. I would love to see Cowherd eat crow if we won. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, Felicia, they would have to win. I mean, I agree. You make it to the Super Bowl, and it's a great year. It doesn't feel that way if they lose, but it's a great year. You know, no matter how you slice it, it's a mark of having a successful season. But if they don't win, then you know people like Cowherd and a lot of Tomlin detractors, a lot of Ben detractors, they're going to say, yeah, they made it, but they didn't win. And, you know, we still talk in Pittsburgh about that Super Bowl 30 loss, and that was, 25 years ago. So, you know, win or lose, yeah, it's great. But I think to really silence people like Cowherd and all the people who say Tomlin won with Cowherd's players in 2008, you have to win. You have to win the whole shebang. But I agree with you. In the grand scheme of things, it's always nice to make it to the Super Bowl. And let's see what else we have here. Here's one from Mark Tobin. Good question. Should they rebuild the offensive line after this season? I think the pieces are there for the start of it. I mean, I don't think you have to totally rebuild. You know, I like Shooks a lot. Shooks Okorafor, the 3rd round pick from 2018, and I like Zach Banner. And I think their plan going into next year, before the season started, was to have Shooks and Banner as their tackles. And now we've seen, you know, how potentially great Kevin Dotson can be at left guard, or maybe right guard. I don't know. I mean, I've people who know a lot more than I do about line play say that's harder said than done to make that kind of switch. But still, you have 3 young talents there to build around, and it's just a matter of finding some more talent. Did they go round 1, round 2? I don't know. It all depends on where they draft, hopefully 32nd, or at least as close to the bottom of the first round as possible, and who's available. So, but do I think they totally need to revamp the line and start over? No, because I think unlike the first time around when they went out and drafted Marquise Pouncey and they had nothing around him, and they had to keep spending draft picks on guys like Marcus Gilbert and DeCastro, and you know they were fortunate to develop Ramon Foster, who was a 09 undrafted free agent. I don't think they have to start from square one this time around. I think they have a pretty decent coach in Sean Surratt. I know a lot of people are down on him, but I think the problem with the line is more about the age with some of these guys like Villanueva and Pouncey, and maybe DeCastro's hit a wall. I mean, he's not as old as those other guys. He might be around the same age as Villanueva, but he's been around since 2012. I think people forget how long he's been in the league. So maybe he hit a wall, but I think that's more of the problem with the line than Sean Surratt. I don't think a guy like Marquise Pouncey and an all-pro like David DeCastro, they're not just going to suddenly forget how to block after just because Mike Munchak left. Same with Villanueva, even though he was a project and a former tight end, a former defensive lineman who he developed into a Pro Bowl left tackle. He's not going to suddenly forget how to play the position just because Mike Munchak left. I mean, a good coach is going to teach a player the techniques that he's going to take with him for the rest of his career. I mean, people taught me things, teachers and coaches and mentors 30 years ago that I still use to this day. So I don't think it's a matter of coaching. I think Sean Surratt is a good coach, and he certainly had the best teacher in the world to show him the ropes. So I think they have to, they have to maybe add some talent to that line, but it's not going to be a total rebuild. Here's one from T Money, my man Terry. The clinch last week was huge. It has given us somewhat selective bye week. Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, I was never in favor of, like, say they kept winning, right? Say they kept winning and they had the number one seed locked up by week 15. I wouldn't have been in favor of resting all the players in week 16, or all the important players over the last couple regular season games, and then you have a week off before your first playoff game. I mean, that's too much of a layoff. But in this case, with the the team not having a legit bye since week 4, a lot of people, I don't think it's as quite as big a deal as other people do, but the Steeler players certainly think it's a big deal. So to give them a mental break this week, at least the key guys or most of the key guys, I think that's huge. So I think it'll be a nice morale boost going into the playoffs. And Mike Tomlin has done this in the past. He did it in 2016 when they beat the Ravens on Christmas, and then they had a meaningless game in week 17. They were the number 3 seed, and they couldn't improve their positioning in the playoffs, and he rested a bunch of people. And Ben and AB and those guys, Le'Veon Bell, they were as strong as could be in the playoffs. I mean, they came out like gangbusters against the Dolphins in the wild card game. And even 2017, people mentioned that on the Hangover on Monday that it hurt Ben because he rested against the Browns in that week 17 game, and then the Steelers had a bye, and then they played in the divisional round. But that offense scored 42 points in that game, so I don't think that was much of a factor. It was just that as I've said a million times, the Jaguars were just a very bad matchup for them in 2017. Let's see what else we have here. Sorry, I missed a bunch as I was rambling on there. Oh, well, I guess I missed everything. All right. Here's one from Mark Tobin. I think I have Mark Tobin the second time. Anyway, Big Al, Ben getting blown up. Always thought he was too big for the position. Seems like guys can get under his pads easily. Well, I mean, let's not be too hard on the guy. He has made a few Pro Bowls, or at least a couple Pro Bowls. I mean, he built himself up into a pretty decent left tackle there. He's just maybe, people forget he's in his 30s now. He was a late bloomer as far as NFL players, and it doesn't really, sometimes it doesn't matter how long you've been in the league. Once you hit 30 plus, I mean, it kind of catches up to some people fast. So maybe that just could be it. And plus, he's going up against a lot of talented pass rushers like Myles Garrett, Carl Lawson. Those guys aren't easy to go against. That's why left tackles make so much money, because usually the best pass rushers are on their side. Here's one from Ron Chess, Tony, do you think Alex Highsmith has big games against Browns? Has a big game against the Browns? I hope so. I hope so, because I think he's a big part of their future. And I think, he was going up against a backup tackle last week, but I think he started to come on at the end of that game. He was this close to having a sack a couple of times, and at that point in the game, it would have been a huge sack, because it would have been a pretty vital sack. So, I mean, it's possible. I don't know, but I think he has the potential to be something special. And obviously, playing opposite of T.J. Watt, he's certainly going to get his share of one-on-one, single blocking. He's not going to be double teamed. So if they're going to be focusing their attention on T.J. Watt, he's certainly going to get plenty of opportunities to perfect his pass rushing moves against one-on-one blocking. All right. And here's one from Never Trumper. If you want to make money, bet against the Steelers. Well, I mean, okay. I don't even know why I put that up there. But, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. If you want to bet on this Sunday's game, I wouldn't advise that. It's too much of a wild card to bet on this game. When players are resting, you just never know how that's going to go. Here's one from Steeler Chick 46. There always seems to be magic when the Steelers are 12-4. I believe that has been our record the last two times we went to the Super Bowl. Yeah. They were 2010. They were 12-4. 08. They were 12-4. 1979. They were 12-4. So it goes all the way back to the 70s. So it's not a bad record to have. So. What else do we have? Here's one from Greg Wakefield. Alex had pressure all game last week. He was close to a sack several times. Yeah, that pretty much echoes what I was saying a second ago. Yeah, he looked like he was this close. And people expect, it was the same thing with Bud Dupree, and he was a first round pick, and the expectations were a little bit higher. But people, I don't think a lot of people don't have patience for that learning curve. Not that people have been down on Alex Highsmith, but I'm certainly not shocked that he hasn't developed into the same kind of player that Bud Dupree has, in his rookie year. But I do see some potential there for him to make a leap. Who knows? Maybe as soon as the playoffs. Hopefully. I mean, wouldn't that be a great story to have have Bud Dupree's current replacement and maybe future replacement tee off in the playoffs and come up with some critical plays for Pittsburgh. Here's one. Felicia Ballard. Well, Tony, Dave, and Bad said we're losing, but not Jeff. Well, I mean, I could see the majority of people saying that they're going to lose on Sunday. It's Mason Rudolph against the Browns full squad. You're not going to have Marquise Pouncey. You're not going to have Cam Hayward. I mean, who knows who else? I mean, Terrell Edmonds is out. Chris Boswell's out. Yeah, he's still nursing his, I think it's a groin injury. So, I mean, I certainly I could see the majority of people vote taking the Browns to win this game. But that's what would make them winning this game, meaning the Steelers, that much sweeter because, what better way to stick it to the Browns and the Cleveland than to really just prove that you're always going to be big brother to their little brother than by knocking them out of the playoffs, knocking your reserves, knocking their starters out of the playoffs when they're playing their biggest game. It's to be the biggest game for them since 2002, that wild card playoff game after the 2002 regular season when they had that 24-7 lead on Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh came all the way back. This is Cleveland's biggest game since then, ironically enough. So it would be quite the pleasant surprise. All right. Here's a comment from Popson Control 2. Since the merger, Steelers have been the best. Yeah, I don't know if you're referring to overall record, but they're probably pretty close. I know they've been a model of consistency since I've been alive. I was born in 1972, which was their first magical year as a franchise. That was the year of the Immaculate Reception. So they've had quite a run. So they're definitely up there as far as the post-merger NFL franchises. Here's one from Evgeny Crosby. Wouldn't that be sweet if it was either one of those two guys? Penguins superstars. If the Steelers can avoid KC, they get to the Super Bowl. I can certainly get on board with that. Here's one from Marquise Bryant. Damn, last regular season game tomorrow, meaning Sunday. I know, time flies, man. Time flies. It feels like only yesterday we were getting ready to watch that first Giants game on Monday Night Football, that week 1 game in New York. And here we are talking about week 17 and the Steelers' prospects for going to the Super Bowl. And I think if you would have asked any fan back then, just if you would have handed them a contract and said Pittsburgh would be no worse than 12-4, no worse than number 3 seed, sign right here, they would take that deal, But I mean, obviously you can't do that, and they got after the 11-0 start. Then they had that rut towards the end of the 11th or 12th week, around that part of the season, which was pretty late for them, and they had a slump, and everybody lost confidence in them. But like we talked about earlier in the show, it's amazing what one game, or in this case, not even a half of football, can do to raise everybody's level of confidence. And I think everybody's, again, to repeat myself, feeling pretty good about their chances now of going on a run in the playoffs, regardless of what happens on Sunday in Cleveland. That, to me, that doesn't matter. I could care less. Actually, I'll be working. So what better game to miss than that game? It'll be my first Sunday working at my new job. So at least I don't have to worry about checking my phone every 5 minutes, because I don't think I'm allowed anyway. Here's one from Zach McClintock. Tony, is Mark Malone available? He won the only game I have ever gone to, 1984 49ers game. Well, I'm sure he's available, but I don't think he's in football shape. That's the only problem. He probably needs a few weeks to get back into football shape. Here's one from Charles Wegand. Seems similar to playing Buffalo in 04, knocking them out of the playoffs with our second and third stringers. Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. Pittsburgh went into that game 14-1. Bill Cowher, who was the coach at that time, he rested Ben and Jerome Bettis and Deuce Staley and probably Troy. I can't remember that far back. James Ferrier, all those guys. Joey Porter, he rested them all. And they knocked off the Bills. And they were part of the reason why the Bills went almost 2 decades without even making the playoffs. That 04 Steelers team. So, yeah, it's similar. Pittsburgh has absolutely nothing to lose. Speaking of Bill Cowher, back in the 90s, Pittsburgh went into their final game 2 or 3 times with everything locked up. And, Cowher was in the habit of resting everybody, and I remember the one year, 94, they had the number 1 seed locked up. The Chargers were going for that number 2 seed, and they were playing their hearts out. They were playing everybody. Pittsburgh was they played nobody in that game. Mike Tomczak was a quarterback. Whoever else was on that roster of great importance didn't play. And the Chargers needed a last-second field goal to win that game. Of course, it would have been better off if Pittsburgh won that game, because the Chargers beat Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game. But the next year, it was the same thing in Green Bay. The Packers were going for the division title. Pittsburgh had the number 2 seed locked up. They couldn't get to number 1. And they actually would have won that game, but Yancey Thigpen dropped a short touchdown pass with like 30 seconds to go. So, sometimes when you have nothing, when you can play loose and no pressure, it's amazing what even the backups can do. Here's a super chat from Evgeny Crosby. You think Ben will sign an extension in the offseason? Actually, I don't. I think what's going to happen is he's going to come back for 1 more year and then call it a career. The more I think about it, that's how I think it's going to go. Financially, it might be better for them if he signs an extension, because they can it would give them some salary cap relief. But if you would ask me that a month ago, I might have said, yeah, he's coming back after 2021. But now I think this might be it for him. I think he's going to play out this year, play next year, and then call it a career, whether he wins another Super Bowl or not. Now, if he doesn't sign an extension next year, it's really going to hamstring them as far as their cap implications. Because I think he counts $41 million against the cap if he comes back next year. So, I'm sure. I don't know what. If you're the Steelers, what do you do? Do you want Ben to sign an extension? Do you want to keep delaying your finding your heir apparent for another 2 or 3 years, or do you just want to bite the bullet next year, hope you find a way to win with Ben, and then say adios? It's been nice. And here's a $5 super chat from Never Trumper. He doesn't have anything to say, but hey, thank you for the $5, Never Trumper. Always appreciated. Happy New Year. Well, I'm being told by the live chat to blow Never Trumper off. But when you donate, we got to highlight you because we're all, like Brian likes to say, we're all a family, whether we agree or disagree on certain things. Even if you're trying to be a troll in the live chat, hey, if you want to be a troll and donate money, troll away. So thank you for that $5. And as Evgeny Crosby says, he thinks that Ben's going to sign an extension. And I think a lot of people are in agreement with you. To repeat, I didn't think so. I thought I would have been in agreement with you about a month ago, but now I think he might want to move on after next year. All right. And it's been a fun show. It took me like a few minutes to get into a groove. I'm not used to doing this after dark, but I got used to it, and you guys were fun to play with tonight. And I'm actually I have to get to another super chat. I can't sign off just yet. This is from Never Trumper again. He might give Snowman a run for his money as our secret admirer. Ben has had one good half in the last 4 games, so yeah, let's rest him. Dumbest move ever. Well, I thank you for the $5 there, Never Trumper, but that's not a very wise thing to say. You can't put him at risk. We saw this last year. You don't have Ben, you don't have a chance. So you want to talk about a dumb move? It would be a dumb move for Mike Tomlin to play him in that game and then have him get hurt. He would never hear the end of it. It actually might be a reason to fire him at that point. So no, it would be a dumb move to play Ben on Sunday. Here's a $4.99 super chat from Adam White. I missed it, but I'm reading it. Welcome to Friday night. Big fan of the show. Well, thank you, Adam White. I appreciate that. All right. And I will, on that note, I will call it a night. I will get off and enjoy the rest of, nope. Here's another one. The donations just keep rolling in from Snowman. $10 super chat. And that is, he reclaims the title if he was ever in danger of losing it as our Robin Masters. Good luck with your new job, Tony. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a pretty challenging job so far, but I'll get used to it. So thank you for that, Snowman. Thank you for the $10, and thank you to even Never Trumper for his generous donations tonight. Everybody out there in the live chat who even if you didn't donate, I appreciate the interaction, and it's always great to talk Steelers football with you guys, whether we agree or not. And on that note, I will bid you adieu. I will talk to you on Monday with Brian on The Hangover. Until then, please check out Behind the Steel Curtain. Please check out our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Please find us all of our podcasts on any audio platform. And on that note, I will say goodnight and Happy New Year and go Steelers.